recording of the session? There we go. Very good. Thank you, Kathleen. Wanted to start out by saying that the ISS staff members that are here for this session today, we will be able to stay beyond 10 o'clock, most of us up until 10:30. So if our discussion runs long and you have time and are able to stick around and continue the discussion, please do. So I think to kick things off, it would be good to hear where people are tuning in from. And I know, Atarva, if you wanted to share, are you in Madison at this time?
Yes, I'm in Madison at this time.
Great. Well, we may have other people joining partway through, but to start things off then, I'd like to just do some introductions of ISS staff who will be helping facilitate the discussions today, and kind of share a little about where we come from. I'll start. My name is Morgan Keller. I'm an assistant director in International Student Services. I use he, him, his pronouns, and as far as places I've lived and travel, I did grow up in California and went to college, at least undergraduate college in Oregon, the state of Oregon. But I've also lived in other countries, including Italy for study abroad and Ecuador in South America. And then I was a teacher in Japan for 8 years. And then I've also lived in South Carolina and now Wisconsin. So I've been very fortunate to live in different parts of the US as well as countries on different continents. Who would like to go next?
Hi, my name is Premtip Satasuk. I am an international student advisor at ISS. I came from Thailand, and I was born in Bangkok, and I have been living in Madison for about 8 years. I am fortunate enough to have a chance to travel. I have been so far about 35 plus countries, and so as you can see the number of the countries, travel is my passion. But also living in the US and especially in Madison, I feel like this is my home too.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Dong Chen. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I work as an ISS office assistant. I help coordinate the International Advisory Board program at ISS. I also co-manage the front desk at ISS. I was born and raised in Wenzhou, a coastal city located in Southeast China, not far away from Taiwan. In the past, I was lucky enough to have studied and worked abroad in Brisbane, Australia, and also Moscow, Russia. I speak Mandarin, English, and some Russian. Since fall 2018, I have been living in Madison. I started as an international student here, and from this year, I started working as a full-time staff at ISS. And for now, Madison is a place where I call my new home.
Good morning. My name is Stacy. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm an international student advisor at ISS, and I am originally from Wisconsin, from up north, and I moved to Madison in December, so I'm still pretty new to calling Madison home. But some other places that I have traveled, I studied abroad in Scotland while I was in college. I also lived in Vermont while I was in graduate school, and recently moved back to Wisconsin from the Washington, D.C. area. So yeah, so right now Madison is home for me, but yeah.
Thank you, Stacy. Kathleen, would you like to share as well?
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm monitoring the call. So if you ever want to post anything in the chat or you have a feature on the side in the bar to like raise your hand, you can do that and I'll see it and tag you in. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the program coordinator at International Student Services. Madison is also new to me. I just moved here in June, so actually it's almost been a year, which seems wild. But I was born in Kansas and then have moved around and lived in a number of states and also studied abroad in Göttingen, Germany. So speak a little bit of German still as well as English, obviously. And then, yeah, just learning what Madison and what Wisconsin is like to call home.
So thank you everyone from ISS for sharing. The title of our session today is Where is Home for You, Global Badger? This session is based on novelist Pico Ayer's TED Talk, Where is Home? And today we are going to be discussing our own concepts of home, our experiences with travel, and how these things have impacted and shaped our worldview. We're going to start out with just a statement of respect to kind of set the tone for our virtual discussion. ISS is committed to creating globally diverse, inclusive engagement opportunities. We support and honor the various identities of our students and community members. We believe that every person brings value and can help build this community. We encourage all those who engage with ISS to show respect by using inclusive and clear language, practicing active listening skills, showing vulnerability by speaking about personal experience, and assuming best intentions. Here are a few of our learning goals for today's session. We hope that through this experience, you will be able to recognize our experiences adjusting to new cultures and navigating culture shock, identify our own concept of home, and also ways that ISS can better cultivate a sense of belonging for international students at UW-Madison, describe ways we can stop movement, as Pico Ayer says, and engage in self-care and self-reflection in our daily lives, and also interpret how our experience or experiences abroad has impacted our worldview and our perceptions of the cultures of our home country and also that of the US. So today's plan is we're going to have a few mini discussions. The first discussion is kind of a slapped awake by culture is the theme, and that will be led by Prim. The second discussion will be this concept of piece of soil or piece of soul in terms of home, led by Dawn. Third discussion will be the theme of stopping movement and finding home, led by Stacy. And I'll be leading the final discussion, the real voyage of discovery and how our worldview can be impacted. Now I'm going to hand it off to Prim to start us with our first discussion.
Thank you, Morgan. I hope everyone here, I believe that everyone here is already, see the TED Talk. And for me, I really like what he mentioned about slapped awake by culture. Like as Pico Ayer say, like travel and being in the middle of things that are foreign to him is exciting. He observes that I have always felt that the beauty of being surrounded by the foreign is that it slaps you awake. Travel for me is a bit like being in love. So suddenly you're alert to the secret patterns of the world. And I really love this section because I love traveling. And I feel like it opens my eyes. I have many great experiences from meeting new people, also like I seeing different culture, learning history from local and being in historical site, things that you can't learn from textbook. So that's why I really love traveling. So I just would like to if you would like to share what do you think about this, please feel free, but like because in part we would like can you empathize with Aya about like being slept awake or starting to recognize the secret patterns of the world, like from your time living in the US and studying at UW-Madison, or perhaps if you experience it this visiting.
And I think, Prim, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that we weren't able to hear you very well. It could be a problem with connectivity. So perhaps if you're able to join again, feel free to cut me off. It might be also if you stop your video, you might be able to hear you better. But I guess I want to kind of just start the conversation and hear from some of the people on our call here, students in particular. So again, this first question about being slapped awake or starting to recognize the secret patterns of the world, as Ayer says. For those of you who are listening, have you experienced this during your time living in the U.S. and studying at UW-Madison? Or perhaps if you've lived or visited another country, can you think of an experience or share one? And I guess another way of thinking of it too is just like Prim had said earlier, these phrases like being slapped awake by culture or noticing the secret patterns of the world. Do those phrases that Ayer uses, is that something that you can relate to? Have you experienced that when you were abroad?
Can anyone hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I just want to give an example for me, like that when I feel like, oh, oh, wow, this is something that's such a different from my home. Like remind of like fortunate are that we were born in this generation. Like when I went to Auschwitz in Poland, and I stand there in the middle of big field, and I feel like, wow, how can they survive in winter? Or like we live here in Wisconsin. We know sometimes like winter can be brutal, and we wear so many layers, and you were standing in that field and feel like people have no clothes, or even wool socks, things like that. Or like when I went to Pompeii in Italy, that nature can get back to us if we don't take care of them too. Like because in Pompeii, like volcano erupted, destroyed the whole city in one blink, something like that. So that's something that I feel like you have to be there to like and imagine that this is happening, and look at it right now in this year 2020, and wow, it's so beautiful. Things can change so quickly. So sometimes for me, traveling is like, yes, what remind me that how lucky I am, or how lucky we are. And Thankfully for food and everything, friendship that I have and had experience with. I will stop talking now so that our students can share their experiences too.
Thanks for sharing that, Prim. I'd just like to add too that we do, have some students on the call, and we haven't had official introductions yet. So as it's a small group at this time, if you could please, maybe Atarva could go first, and you could just share a little bit about where you come from, your home country, and what you're studying at UW-Madison, what level, if you're a master's student or what have you. Would that be okay? I don't know if anybody heard me there. Yeah, I see Atarva on the call, and also another person. It looks like a Joe. Is it Joe Huese? All right. Well, hopefully you're all still listening in. Perhaps we can continue with this part of the discussion. Did you want to? I can move to the next slide, Prem, and maybe we can talk about some of those questions.
Yes, and student, if you want to talk to us, or if you have technical problem, please test. I know that there's a signal that like raise your hand. Please click on that one, or like click at the chat function, and then so that we are able to help you if you have any technical problem. Yes. So do you have like Morgan, Dong, or Stacy? Do you want to share your experiences with us too about culture shock, or like the secret pattern? Especially for Dong after you coming to the US.
Sure. When you were talking about Poland, that reminds me of like my memories in both Russia and here. So growing up in Wenzhou, Wen in Chinese means warm. So my city is called Warm City in China, where we really have any snow. So I still remember the first time when I was in Moscow, the winter, when the first snow came, me and my roommate were so excited, and we were like screaming, and we ran to the window to see the snow. That was very like different experience for us. Also with the snow, we experienced the difficulty about how to keep us warm, like in such a cold, extreme weather. So that's definitely a kind of like culture shock or like different experience for us. And also here in Wisconsin, also it's pretty cold as Russia, but I just feel like since here we have a lake, the way of the coldness is just a kind of slightly different. Sometimes winter here can be more windy, so still a lot of different things to experience, and that's how like for me, that's part of a reason that how travel and living abroad always make me excited, because you always experience new things and learn something new. Yeah.
Yes, Stacy, how about you?
Yeah, one experience that popped in my head is when I moved to the Washington, D.C. area. Up until that point, I hadn't really lived in any major cities. And so for me, moving from smaller towns, in Vermont and Wisconsin to, this big city, this big area, for me, that was kind of a culture shock. There were buses to get you places, and parking was all of a sudden really hard and very expensive, where my whole life parking had been free. So yeah, that was kind of in a way for me, that was definitely a culture shock and kind of a big hurdle to kind of learn all of these new things that you have to learn when living in a big city that I had never had to deal with before. So yeah, that was one of my experiences with culture shock, just moving to a bigger city.
Yes, and now you move back to Wisconsin. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Perhaps it's reverse culture shock.
Maybe a little
Yes.
bit, yes.
Yeah, like for me, yeah. Sorry, Morgan, go ahead.
Oh, no, Prim, did you want to share an experience?
No, I just want to say, like, for me, it's so weird, like that it's not just only being in another country, but like the airport is something that make me nervous because I'm afraid to miss my flight. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. I wanted to just add too that I remember when I was first watching this talk, the Where is Home TED Talk, and when he used the phrase secret pattern, that really stood out to me, and it was something that I could immediately feel because it's something I've definitely experienced. And I feel like those moments when you finally realize that there is a secret pattern is when you have really kind of progressed along that continuum of adjusting to a new culture. And for me, I remember probably the most daunting and challenging experience adjusting to a new culture was when I first arrived in Japan, and I had really set myself up for failure in a way because I didn't know any Japanese before I went to the country, very, very, very little. And I didn't know hardly anything about the culture, only very popular things that people know in the West. And so I was sent to a tiny little fishing village that is literally the southernmost point of mainland Japan. After that, it is just ocean for hundreds and hundreds of miles. So here I am in this tiny fishing village. There's no English speakers, and my first 6 months was very challenging, but I learned a lot of Japanese during that time. But one thing I remember where I finally realized a secret pattern was happening is I remember I was talking to my supervisor at one point, and I was making a request of him to help me with some paperwork. And when I asked him, he replied and said, he used the word muzakashi. And when I heard that word, I thought, muzakashi, what does that mean? I've heard that. I looked it up in my dictionary, and the definition of the word muzakashi is difficult. And so when he said that, I thought, oh, he's telling me that it's difficult, but of course not impossible, I would think. So I remember going to him and saying, yes, yes, muzakashi, but onegai means please. And so he kind of did this, and then he ended up helping me. But it wasn't until at least a year into my experience that I realized that the word muzakashi is kind of a code word when you are turning someone down politely, saying,
Oh.
like this, we can't do this. It's too much. It's not going to happen. So I didn't realize that at first, but then I eventually learned how to use the word muzakashi to decline and not be able to do something. So I also learned the meaning of that, but that was a secret pattern.
Ah, okay. And from what you just shared us, it showed that we all have survivor instinct. You went there, know little Japanese, and then now you speak fluent Japanese, right?
Fluent is relative term, isn't it? I think that literally means that you can speak fast at a fast pace, which I can when I'm angry at my children. But yeah, I picked up the language, but I always compare maintaining a language to brushing your teeth. You have to do it regularly to maintain. So I need to be better about that. How about though for anyone else on the call here? Was anyone want to respond to anything about secret patterns or being slapped awake by culture before we go to the next slide? not, I think I'm going to move to the next one here. Did you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like really interesting question for me. What was the toughest challenge for you in your adjustment to living in the US and studying at UW-Madison? Or like how did you navigate this challenge? I would love our students to share your experiences here, but like for me, the toughest challenge when I moved here is it's kind of like food is the first thing because as you know in Thailand we have fruit all year long. We have it every season, we have fresh fruit. But here I learned how to buy fruit seasonal, so it's not too expensive for me. And also like I learned how to eat things that it's not too spicy. Like, and I learned that hamburger is supposed to be beef, not just like because in my country, a lot of us we don't eat beef. So we thought that, I can eat hamburger here. Do you have pork burger? And then like I remember first time my husband looked at me like, honey, don't say it out loud. Burger here it means beef. So that's culture shock for me. So it's like mostly it's food. Yeah. So anyone want to share about your experiences, studying here at UW-Madison?
Yeah, I'd like to share something. So personally, I thought the move to an extremely cold place would be very difficult and moving to the US. And one thing I realized about Madison is that people are very nice, including all the faculty members, the students. So I didn't find the challenge as tough as I expected it would to be. So that was, I think, a nice part about Madison and like the college itself.
Okay. But like so I'm glad to hear that, we have warm welcoming and then like people here I admit that yes, I agree with you that people here in Madison they are very friendly and it helps me to adjust myself and blend myself in easier than I expected. Yes. Dong, how about you? You're a student here too.
Yeah. As for me, a fun fact, I guess, the toughest challenge was like I really like the ice cream in the Union, but I have a difficult time to control my sugar intake. So that has been kind of challenging and struggle for me personally.
I love ice cream there too. What is your favorite flavor? I love Blue Moon.
Recently, I think they had a like Badger Madness, which is like chocolate one, which is awesome.
I see. Okay. So do we have anyone else that would like to share the experiences or discuss with us? Otherwise, we may have to move on to the next question. Okay. Morgan, can we move to the next one? Thank you. So this part is going to be Dong. Dong,
Yeah.
I hand you my mic. Here you go.
Yes. Thank you, Prem. For the second part, I would like to invite everyone to think about the concept home. For many of us, we might talk about home all the time and feel that the home is right just around us all the time. But what does a home really mean to us? Early in his talk, Ayer thoughtfully proposes for more and more of us, home has really less to do with a piece of soil than with a piece of soul. As for me, soul and soil are the very thought-provoking and interesting metaphors here. I guess they might also very well resonate with many of us. With that idea being shared, we just have a couple of questions to follow up for the group to discuss how we conceptualize the home. So for the first question, do you think of home as a specific physical location? And second one, or like Ayer, Do you think of home more on a spiritual level as something you carry on inside of you whenever you go? Does anyone in the group would like to jump in and share your thoughts? Okay, I would like to start then. So as for me, I would say both, because I feel it's important to have a physical location to be able to create memories, just return back anytime for rest and get well recharged. And I can definitely see my hometown Wenzhou in this way. Besides, I also strongly echo on Ayer's idea that home is something that we can carry around inside of us whenever we go. And I do have a fun story to share with you all. So back to year like 2012 to 2015, for a period of 3 years, I helped my dad did research about the poetry written by some of our family's ancestors. China has no history. So our family, my family name is Chen. So for our Chen clan, we lived in Wenzhou. Some of our ancestors lived in Wenzhou, a specific location from the Song Dynasty and Ming Dynasty, which was like AC 1200 to like 1600, so very, very long ago. Like my dad was very interested in our family history. So like both of us kind of traveled to many places throughout Wenzhou in order to look for the old poetries, which includes those like local gazetteers and also the like old temples of our like ancestral temples. And at the end, my dad, he kind of collect all those with a lot of work, he collected all those old writings, and he even published an anthology of our ancestors' poetry named like I even have this book with me now. So it's called Chen Claim in like Rui'an, Wenzhou, and about their poetries. That has been a very unique experience for me because at that time as a teenager, I did not know much about my home, my family history, and I thought home just means my mom, my dad, and me. So with that experience for the first time, I kind of realized, wow, our family history is so long, and wow, like our ancestors are phenomenal with their like poetry work. It also kind of motivated me to further like study and learn more about our family history. And those kind of sense of connection to the family gets stronger and stronger since then, since I kind of get a better understanding of that. So like for now, I feel, wow, whenever I talk about home, I would say, I'm part of like Chen Claim. It has already been a part of identity for me that I can carry with whenever I go in the world. And I feel like this part of identity, the home feeling, has been constantly bringing me the courage and the faith. Yeah. So I think that's a very unique experience with me. So I just would love to share. Yeah, and I'm also curious to hear other people's thoughts and stories.
I don't know if no one's going to jump in, I would just like to share also. I appreciate everything that Dawn just shared from her own experience, and it's truly amazing that your father published an anthology of poetry from your ancestors and your family. That's amazing. I know recently I had a conversation with my wife, and she is from Japan, and we had a like a video chat with my sister who lives in Chicago, and she about a little less than a year ago moved to Chicago from California, where she spent most of her life. And during our chat, she said how much she missed my hometown, which is a tiny, little town in the mountains of California, and that she was saying that that really still feels like home to her. And afterward, my wife and I were talking, and my wife was just kind of shocked by that statement. She was just kind of like, wow, I'm so amazed that she's thinking of home as the physical, place where she grew up, and where my parents still are. I think that's part of it also, where you actually have your parents. But she's like, wow, that's so different, because for me, my concept of home is where we are right now as a family. So for me, home right now is Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever we are as a family, that's going to be home. So even though part of her hometown in Japan will always be home, I really think that for her, that her main idea of home is wherever we are at the moment as a family, wherever we're living. But that was interesting, because my sister was still thinking, she wasn't thinking of where she was physically in Chicago with her family. She's thinking of where my parents are and where she spent most of her life in our hometown. So I thought that was interesting.
Wow, thanks for sharing. It's very interesting to see those two perspectives regarding the home, but both of them are beautiful. Thanks. Is there anyone in the group who would like to keep sharing with this topic?
Yeah, I would love to share because of I kind of like, yeah, where is my home? Because my mom and my siblings and my best friends, they are all in Bangkok, and every time that we go back there, it's like it feels like home here because we have everything here. I still have my own room. I left a lot of not left, but like I didn't bring it here. Like all my clothes and everything, it's all there. So like every time you know, I I go home, I still have my own favorite pillows there. My mom, but the most important thing is I think it's my mom. Because I feel like she's the center of our family, even though I have my own family now, but we don't have kids. So I still really, have a really strong connection with my mom and my siblings. So even though Madison feels like home, but I think slightly higher that Bangkok, it's, like if you ask me, where's your home? Bangkok is my home 100% and Madison is 99%. So, yeah, and also for Thai culture, I think family is really, we have really strong connection. Um, Even though every Thai New Year, which is in April, we always like get together and to appreciate our family, appreciate um, parents and grandparents. So I think that's what I missed here, even though um, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they live in Wisconsin, and they are very nice, and it feels like they are my parents too. They are taking good care of me, but also it's still like, unlike like with your own mom, you can talk to her with everything. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Prem. Yeah, I echo a lot here. So also for me, having a big family gathering during Spring Festival is also like big important memory about home. That's beautiful. I think it's good time for us to move to the next question. So do you think of Madison as a home? And do you feel you have homes in different countries? And do you sometimes feel these homes are pulling you in separate directions? And how? I know three of them are kind of like step by step, kind of getting deeper questions, and it can really get thought provoking. I would really appreciate hearing people's thoughts regarding that. I can probably start sharing my thoughts regarding these questions. For me, as I mentioned, I have been here for about like 2 years. At the beginning was kind of challenging as a, like first timer to a totally new country, new city. However, I just feel like at that time when I was international student here, I was very thankful that I was able to receive many helpful resources and help from the campus and also the local community, which help my transition process become much easier. And now after having been there for almost like 2 years, I just feel like I do have my different like connections and like my own communities in Madison. I have met different nice peoples who I can feel comfortable and happy to reach out to share my happiness, and also sometimes I challenge of life, which make me feel I can feel just be myself and get relaxed all the time in Madison. So now I start to feel like Madison is really my home, and of course, as I shared, China is my always my permanent home. Yeah. And sometimes for me, life in Madison in general has been great. I really appreciate my life here almost every day. However, like when it comes to the like national festivals in China, like Moon Festival or like Spring Festival, those times for many Asian countries, it's a great important time for us to have a family reunion or just get together with your important ones. Being far away from home can sometimes be challenging for me. Yep. Does anyone in the group have a like strong feeling to these questions and would also like to jump in and share?
And I don't know as well, Atarva, if you're still on the call, I think I think we would all like to hear a little bit about where you come from, where home is from you, like coming as an international student, and some of these questions about, if you now think of Madison as home.
Thanks for that, Morgan. I think of Madison as home. So for me, I've been here for the last around maybe 1.5 to 2 years, and I haven't been outside the country in maybe a year and 2 or 3 months. So I feel like I call Madison as home right now. And do I have a home back in India? Yes, definitely. I have family back in India, I have friends back in India. And I do sometimes feel that these homes are pulling me in separate directions because on one hand, I want to go back and I want to take care of my family in India, but at the same time, I really like Madison and what I'm studying here. So I would want to keep doing that for as long as possible. So there are these different directional pulls that do keep happening.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, Atharva. And as a previous international student and currently an international employee here, I definitely echo a lot on what you say. Thank you. Moving forward, we can talk about our last part of the mini discussion too. So the topic about sense of belonging. For the ISS, supporting our global badgers to feel at home here and also be successful has always been our mission. From your perspective, is there anything that ISS can do to further cultivate the international students' sense of belonging in our campus community? And we also understand it's a special time. So for this question, we can talk about two parts. So for our students who are currently still living in Madison, is there anything we can do to better support them to feel at home? And also for our students who are currently back in their home countries, we can also think about things we can do to help them. And for this question, Sarah, it will be very nice if we can hear your thoughts as an international student.
Yeah.
Would you like to share? Yeah.
I think ISS is doing its part in this whole pandemic situation because like all your turnaround rates are very high, and then you have the online sessions where people can go and get counseling and so on. So I think ISS is doing its part, and there's very limited stuff that can be done in such a situation because it's so unprecedented and no one knows how to react. But I think one thing that the ISS can do, and it's been doing already, is to maintain some sort of continuity in communication. So tell people what they should expect from, say, Trump says he's stopping immigration for 2 months now. So how will that affect, say, student visas or people who are coming here through, like in fall 2020? So like ISS is doing enough for like students on campus right now, but maybe we can also reach out to students who have admits and who are anxious on whether they'll be able to come to the US or not is maybe one idea that
Thank you so much. That's very helpful to learn. Just for your information, like currently in our website, we do have a Q&A session about COVID-19. So whenever, if you have questions or your international peers might have questions, it might be very helpful resources to check in. But also in terms of your suggestion, I think that's a very nice idea, and we will definitely take that into consideration and to see if there's any ways we can keep improving our like service and support to our students. And is there any more ideas from our group regarding this question? If not, considering of the time, we might need to move on to another discussion. And welcome Stacy to lead this discussion.
Thank you, Dong. And thank you for sharing the topic of home and what home means. So this next topic, stopping movement and finding home, I think one of the themes of this section is kind of taking a moment to stop and reflect on and process kind of what's going on around you, your experiences. I think this is especially helpful. You know, many of us are world travelers or travelers around the US, and I think it's good to, from time to time, to kind of stop and reflect on our experiences. And also even, you know, with the current situation, kind of stopping to reflect on that. So Ayer shares a story about spending time in a monastery on the California coast where he unplugged and did a lot of writing and reflecting on his life. Through this experience, he realized that it is only by stopping movement that you can see where to go. And it's only by stepping out of your life and the world that you can see what you most deeply care about and find a home. If you want to go to the next slide, Morgan, thank you. As I kind of mentioned, we've all physically stopped movement to protect ourselves and others from the spread of COVID-19. However, for many of us, our mental movement of studying and working has increased with us now, spending even more time in front of our computer and phone screens. And with all of these changes going on, I'm curious to hear, have you been able to stop this nonstop mental movement by disconnecting from your electric devices each day? And what things have you been doing to refresh your mind and spirit and stay healthy? And I'm happy to start the discussion. One thing that I've been doing each day to kind of step away from screens is to make sure I get outside and go on a walk and kind of just enjoy the sounds of nature and watching the trees slowly turn green. For me, I think that has been really helpful, and it's giving me a time to kind of reflect and refresh after a day of working on the computer. But I'm curious to hear what some other people have been doing to kind of step back and reflect or refresh during this time or in general?
If no one jumps in, I will just quickly share something that has worked for me recently that was involved some reflection and also was refreshing for me. It was a nice change of pace. Recently, it was actually a 10-year wedding anniversary for my wife and I. And I decided for our anniversary that I would write her a poem. And that I'm someone who really enjoys writing poetry, but I realized that I had not done it in a while. And I found that it was really a great experience one night, spending about, I think, 3 to 4 hours just thinking of reflecting on our marriage over a 10-year period of time, and then putting those thoughts and those memories into a poem. And so that I think has kind of inspired me to try to make time every day to do some writing. And it doesn't always have to be beautiful poetry that you're writing. It can be journaling. It can be a quick write where you're writing about what's going on. It could be something that's happening to you and how you're thinking about it philosophically, or it can be more cathartic where you're kind of it can be kind of a healing thing where you're writing about things that are really bothering you right now in terms of the global health crisis and politics. And so it can be something that can heal you as well. But in my experience lately, it's been a good change to take to writing. That's helped me refresh and unplug.
Thank you for sharing that, Morgan. Did anyone else in the group want to share anything that they've been doing, or maybe new practices that they've learned, like writing each day? I'm curious to hear if anyone has any thoughts to share.
I think for me, because I don't have to spend my time for commuting, so we have more time to go for a walk or hiking nearby the park. And but we usually go to the park that is not too many people, or the park that have a larger area so that we can spread around. So that thing is like, I really like it and enjoy it so much, and it helps me to stop thinking about, or even stop using my own phone, or even look at the laptop or computer, because you disconnect from all the device, and then you go out there and see nature, hear bird bird songs, or like I remember we saw an owl like 3 weeks in a row. If we go in the evening like 6:30, we will see deer, or we see a lot of sandhill cranes. So that's that part I really like and enjoyed so much.
Thanks, Prem, for sharing that. So moving on to the next questions. Have you found opportunities to self-reflect and think about the things that are most precious to you? And what has been working well for you in terms of self-reflection? Some of us have shared journaling, nature walks. I've been enjoying reading as well, and doing some cooking. But I'm curious to hear if anybody else on the call has anything they'd like to share about self-reflecting and taking time to think about things that are most precious to you. And I can share something that I've been doing as well. It's not necessarily taking a break from screen time, but some of my friends from graduate school, we've set up every weekend we have a set time that whoever is available can kind of call in. And this has been, I think for us, this has been a really great opportunity to reflect on, the current situation with COVID-19, but also, reconnect with each other and share ideas. We're all in the field of international education, so for us, it's been a great way to, share experiences, share ideas, kind of discuss and debrief from what's going on in our lives. So yeah, does anybody have anything else to add to this? Okay. If not, we can move to the next slide, Morgan. Thank you. So as Iyer suggests, has stepping out of your life and the world to self-reflect help you find a home, and how so? How can stopping movement and finding a home help us be kinder to other people? And finally, how can it help us be kinder to Mother Nature? So does anybody have thoughts about this? And I'm happy to share one of my experiences of stepping out of life and the world. So when a few years ago, I decided to kind of step out of my life and go to graduate school. And I went to a very small school that was in Vermont. And similarly, I think many of my classmates had, had similar experiences. They were coming from all over the world to this little campus. And while I wasn't necessarily, in Ayer's case, he kind of, went to a monastery where he was by himself. But in this situation, we were kind of a group of people that had kind of all stepped out of our lives and we're together in this one place. And I think that helped us all to kind of step out of our lives and reflect and help each other reflect about the world around us. And I think in doing so, that kind of helped us find a home in a sense of kind of our beliefs and our values. Yeah, that was one suggestion or one example that I have. And I think similarly, in the same sense of stopping movement and in terms of helping us to be kinder to people, I found that kind of stopping and reflecting on my own experiences and kind of things going on have helped me to be more empathetic towards others and their situation. So yeah, I'm curious to hear if anyone has anything to add to that.
I think for me, because I was born in Bangkok, so like life around me it had been like busy, and you got up early to go to school or go to work, and then in the evening, okay, it's time to come home now. We, as you know, that we have a pretty good um not good one, but like reputation of traffic jam. So sometimes I spend like hour to get home. So it feels like, okay, our life it's kind of nonstop, and it's like a routine until one day I feel like, okay, I stop, waiting for a SkyTrain to go home, and then stop and looking around. It's like, kind of like a moment that, what am I doing here? Or like, what's going on with my life? And stop and thinking, and sometimes like, look down on the road, and then like, some people just, the stop that I was waiting for the train, it's like next to the park, and I saw another life that people kind of like go out and exercise in the evening, play some sports, or even, get together and do kind of like dance in the park, like in the in a group of like large group of people, it's just like, this is such a different from my life. What am I doing here? I think, I should kind of like set my life in a better way that kind of like not just go to work and come home and that's it. I should separate my life better. I should stop and look around and see like that there's something else than just go to work. Life is not just that. And I should like think about like what is it that actually gonna make me happy. I was happy, but like in a wrong way. You know what I mean? So I think now I found what I really like and I enjoy it so much. I separate work. After work, this is what I'm going to do. Try to disconnect it. Yeah, that's my experience. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Prem. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean of the kind of getting caught up in your daily routines, and it's definitely important to once in a while stop and look around and think, is this what I want to be doing? Do I want to change anything? So thank you for sharing. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to add?
Yeah, I shared about the importance of similar to what you're saying of stopping your movement, stepping away from your life and really taking in your surroundings and really thinking deeply about what really is precious. And I think it's very easy to lose track of that in our daily lives when we have so many different things, usually work related, that are competing for our attention, and sometimes even in a way kind of hiding, or maybe not hiding, but kind of making us forget about our values in some ways. But the last part there on this slide, this question of, how can we be kinder to Mother Nature? One thing that I was thinking about the other day, one way that for me personally, I'm able to kind of step out of my life in the world, as Ayer says, is trying to make a point of getting out in nature, if possible, every day. And I think that kind of daily ritual of getting out into the woods for a walk or wherever, it reminds us of how beautiful the natural world is, and puts that more at the forefront of our consciousness, and makes us think about what can we be doing to be nicer to the environment. One thing I was reading about the other night that was very interesting is the Japanese have this concept. It's an actual thing you can check, called Shinrin Yoku. And what Shinrin Yoku translates to literally is the term forest bathing. And if you hear that, you're thinking, what does this mean? Do we go into the woods and we're swimming in a river or something? But what it actually means is spending time, a period of time, an hour, 2 hours if you can, in a forest. And if you actually do this, there have been they've been these scientific studies that spending time in forests actually, as far as people's physical health, works wonders. People's immune systems are stronger. Things like hypertension and high blood pressure go down. They've done studies with Japanese businessmen, taking them from outside the office into the forest for a week, and in a period of just 3 days, they've seen these kinds of changes in their physical health. So I think that it's twofold. It can actually help your physical health, but it can also really help your mental and emotional health, and remind yourself of how wondrous and beautiful the natural world is, and what we should be doing to continue to experience it and also help protect it. And I think just naturally, then you're also probably going to be nicer to other people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Morgan. Yeah, I agree. I definitely think it's important to get out in nature every day and kind of, you know, be in that environment, it can definitely be very rejuvenating and refreshing. So thank you for that. And actually, I think that is the end of my section, so I'm going to pass it on to you, Morgan, for the next section. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stacy. So we're getting to our final mini discussion here, and this topic is what I like to call the real voyage of discovery. And I really love how partway through his talk, Ayer brings up this famous quotation by Marcel Proust. And that quotation is that the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeing new sights, but in looking with new eyes. And then Ayer adds, and of course, once you have new eyes, even the old sights, even your home, becomes something different. So I think this is really sets the stage us to kind of delve into this topic of how travel and physically being in other places, it's not always just about that aspect of being physically somewhere, but more so how our experiences, how our interactions, how the things that we're learning are affecting how we view the world. So a few questions to start out with. If you suddenly return to your home country due to the COVID-19 pandemic, does home still feel like home despite the global health crisis? And then in what ways has your sense of home changed or remained the same from the time you have spent abroad? And I realize at this time, we do not have any students on the call who are back home right now due to the pandemic. I don't know if anyone else here from our staff has any thoughts about maybe the way your sense of home has changed or maybe stayed the same from the time you've spent in other countries.
I would like to share on this topic. Personally, I'm still in Madison, but I do have many international student friends who are currently back home now. And some of them shared with me that like traveling back to home during the COVID-19 has been kind of challenging. And for some of them who has just arrived, they might need to experience a quarantine for about 2 weeks at home as well. And after that was not very fun, honestly. But right after the quarantine, like many of them told me like how happy and relaxed they are, being able to just get to home and being with family again. Yeah, that's definitely an exciting thing for me to hear from them. And for the question too, speaking from my personal experience, like in the past when I traveled back to home after like studying or working abroad, for me, I feel kind of like my impression to my home has was kind of refreshed all the time. In general, for me, I would say like when I was at home in the past, I was more looking at my home as like, oh, my parents and I am always a like, like child comparing to my parents. However, after all these experiences, I feel I'm kind of more I'm more independent, mature, and I am more having my kind of view of world now. So like when I travel back home, I can see like I feel I am more like independent and like uh I kind of see myself more as an independent person in my home comparing to my parents. And also I was able to see something that I was not able to see in the past, like in many ways. Yeah, such as just a small thing like I have never known that in my hometown we have Wisconsin cheese on sale in the past until I really studied here, and I was so surprised to find it last summer. Yeah, just a small fun fact. Yeah.
small world, Don, that you're able to find Wisconsin cheese back home in China.
Yeah, right on the like grocery store on my apartment. So that's so cool.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think if I were to share as well, I think similar to what I had said earlier from my wife's comment when we spoke with my sister not too long ago, and she was talking about how my hometown, way over in California, still feels like home to her. But I really feel like now for me, home is no longer this specific location. And I feel like the change for me was when I was living abroad in Japan and my wife and our family started. And for us, as soon as our family started, um, home really became wherever we are at the time, where we are living together as a family. That really became the definition of home and definitely my new sense of home. Whereas previously, it wasn't always that just the place where I was living was the place that I really felt to be my home. I might still feel that a previous place I had lived or where other family was more so a home. But that's definitely changed for me now. Anybody else from our team want to share, or shall we? Perhaps we can move on to the next questions here. I think I'll move to the next one. And here we're asking some questions about, in a way, reverse culture shock. It says here, since coming to the U.S. and returning to your home country, has your perception of your country and culture changed? And if so, in what ways? Have you experienced any reverse culture shock, which is difficulty readjusting to your home culture since returning from the U.S.? And if you have experienced reverse culture shock, how have you navigated this? So in a way, I'd love to hear some of our colleagues here who have been living in the U.S. and traveled home to China and Thailand and elsewhere, what your thoughts are.
Definitely, Morgan. Hi, I'm Prem. So like from, have been going back and forth like in the past 8 years, I can start to see like the culture shock that I have experienced with it when I go back to Bangkok is I think not a culture shock, but like something that I never noticed before that, oh, I used to live in a big city like Bangkok, and wow, it's not as clean as in Madison. Madison is really clean, including the air, it's so refreshing. But when I go home, it's like, man, we have a lot of cars, pollution, people, and it's hot and humid. And sometimes like the interesting thing is like that I noticed last time when I went back is um we we were waiting for the train at the main station, like it's kind of like in the center of Bangkok. People will line up and waiting to go inside the train, but different train station, sky train station, people don't really like line up and then wait, like in the cities in the center, like they just like gonna, even though I was the first one who wait in line, someone just pretending and then just walk and stand right in front of me. So that's kind of like culture shock. Like, what should I do? Should I say it? Like, is it going to be impolite to say that to him? Or, but he's, it's kind of like now if you're in the US, you're just going to say, hey, excuse me, please go back. Like so many people wait in line. Please go back to that, to your queue. And then like, so I kind of like, I have fight in my head that should I say it out loud or should I just, be polite because that person is older than me. So, but I don't have to do that by myself because my husband said out loud because he's American. He said, excuse me, but he said it in a polite way. So, and that person's like, I'm sorry, and then walk back and so that's something that is culture shock for me. Like, oh my God, I didn't notice that until now that like why don't we wait in line like in other country, or like why don't we just throw away the garbage in the garbage can instead of just you know on the street, things like that. So yeah, that's my experiences. And one thing, another not culture shock but kinda is wow, I can find food anywhere in 24 hours. Even at night after 10, if I'm hungry, there's always something for me to buy. Usually we don't really cook in Thailand because we have so many street vendors and it's not expensive. Just so you know, it's just kind of like different from the US. So yeah, thank you.
Can I jump in? Oh, Prem, I echo so much of that. Oh, wow. I do miss all those bubble tea choices in China. I remember next to my home, like on one street, there are like 3 bubble tea shops in a row just for you to choose. And you can always get a very high quality bubble teas in an affordable price. That's what I really miss about home. And also a small example about culture shock and also reverse culture shock I experienced like between US and China is like when I first came to Madison and I went to a local restaurant and they will give me a kind of very ice water with a lot of ice cubes, which was kind of like culture shock to me because in China we prefer to drink just like air temperature water or kind of a warm water in our normal life. Um, well, like when I came back to China like last summer, it was summer, it was very hot, and when I was trying to look for the water fountain in the airport, they only served like warm and hot water, which was like, wow, it's really too hot to drink for me now. So that's kind of interesting, even though it's a very small thing, but it kind of like made me feel, wow, a big shock at that time. Yeah, and also we kind of have less water fountain in China, but people just bring their water from home or like workplace more often. That's something I observed. Yeah.
Thank you both for sharing some of the reverse culture shock you've experienced. I can even briefly add that I also experienced it after spending so many years living in the countryside of Japan and then coming back to living in a city in California. Um, and I think one of the things that stuck out to me immediately that I think a lot of Americans would agree if they've been to other countries that have great systems is the healthcare system immediately jumped out to me. And as a student with a family, I was in grad school at the time, just looking at different medical bills and insurance we were paying, my eyes just popped out of my head and thinking, yikes, this is a serious shock to my system and to my wallet. But another thing more in general that I noticed was that I felt that, and again, I have to preface this by saying this is just a bigger generalization, right? But I found that in Japan, there is this certain standard of trust that it just kind of pervades the culture. A good example is I remember when my father-in-law was visiting me in the town where we were living, and we went out to a store, and when we got home, he realized that his wallet was missing. And so we thought, oh, shoot, I bet when we got out of the car at the store, your wallet fell out. And so we rushed back. We didn't see anything in the parking lot. We went into the store and we asked if a wallet was if they given a wallet to the front desk, and they said, yes, there was. Here it is. And they asked him to identify it, of course, and he did. But it was that was just one of many examples I saw in Japan where if someone were to lose something, for example, people would immediately return things. And It's not to say that that kind of Good Samaritan type thing doesn't happen in the U.S. There certainly are many good people who would do the same thing. But I find that in some ways, because the U.S. is such an individualistic culture, people are really kind of out for themselves and what's best for them. And so coming back, a shock to my system is I really needed to really be better and be more aware of looking out for the interests of myself or my family. Whereas when I was living in Japan, that's not the feeling within the culture. Everybody is is connected in a way, and people are thinking about others oftentimes first before they're thinking of themselves or their in-group, their family. We have one final slide of questions here, which says, through your experience living in the U.S. and studying at UW-Madison, do you think you've begun to see the world around you with new eyes? Can you share an example of how your worldview has changed? And I know that Prim will probably have to leave the call relatively soon, but if you had any final thoughts on this before you have to leave, if not, I understand. Or Dong, Stacy, Kathleen even, be curious what you think about this topic of worldview.
I can share from my experience living in other states and studying abroad. I think that doing that has definitely changed my worldview. I think that, having lived in other places, I kind of take those experiences with me when I now think about different situations. It's kind of broadened my scope in a sense, from moving from a very small town in northern Wisconsin to the big city of Washington, D.C. So I can't think of a specific example right now that I can share, but I have noticed just in, getting to meet different people in Wisconsin and Scotland and Vermont and DC, I think that I have brought all of that with me now living in Madison and working in ISS. So I definitely resonate with that, I can see that my worldview has changed.
Okay, before I have to leave for the appointment with student, I would like to share that yes, definitely from move from Bangkok to US and study abroad in Australia, and also travel to many countries. I think one thing that helped me a lot from those experiences that I had is when people react something that I didn't expect it, I would stop first and think that it's not because of they're not nice to you, but maybe because they have different point of view. Stop thinking and ask first. Try to think, okay, what's going on? Why you think like that way? Instead of judge them right away. That's something that I think it changed my, I have new eyes to look into people in a different way and give them a chance and opportunity to for them to to show actually what they think. And I don't know, I think that's, yeah, I don't know if it's good or not, but let's say that give people a chance to say what they would like to say what they actually think and why they think that like that. Thank you, everyone. I will have to I have to leave now, but I hopefully this discussion will bring all of us together, and I hope our experiences that we just share to you guys will help you to think and reflect of your experiences too.
Thank you for facilitating and sharing, Prem.
Before we end, I would also like to briefly share my thoughts on that. So kind of like growing up in China, I kind of like grew up with many Chinese friends all the time. And back to that time, I thought, like because we share the same culture, we look similar. That's the reason why how we can make connections and like we can be each other's like friend. However, after studying abroad in different countries, especially after like studying at UW-Madison, the campus with the great diversity and opportunity for different people to speak out, I started to get like more friends with different like cultural background, and I really appreciate the opportunity to getting to know them and like share each other's stories. And from all these experiences, it made me think like, wow, it's not like the place you are come from, the color that you are, and all the like it's not like education you receive and all these things can define you or separate people. It's who you are and what do you believe, like that really shapes you and make you a unique person. So I would say like now in my eyes like everyone is unique, and I would really like to see person as a person without all those tags or stereotypes. I think that's what my experience of studying here and also just like studying abroad in general has changed me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dong. And I like how it also it kind of connects with what Prim was saying about reserving judgment and not deferring to stereotypes and these kinds of things. I want to just we're at the very end of our talk here. We do have this slide about takeaways, and I don't know, for those of us who are still on the call, if any of you have any final thoughts in terms of something you've taken away from our discussion today, or perhaps Ayer's TED Talk. Just to kind of piggyback on what we just were talking about, I think for me, one of the takeaways, and this is not necessarily something that's a totally new idea to me, but I think it's a very important idea to continue to remind ourselves of, is what Prim shared and then Dawn here at the end about when you are in another country, and or even when you're coming back to your home country, and you realize something that is different from what you prefer, that is maybe kind of what you might call a cultural bump that is bothering you. It's shocking you in some way. The importance of being aware of that in the moment, and trying to suspend your judgment, hold back your judgment, and instead of having that approach of judgment, actually having the approach of curiosity and seeing it as, whoa, this is different than what I expected, but there must be a reason. And I would like to find out what the reason is so that I can better understand where I am now and the people around me and what they value. Did anybody else want to share anything?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely a big takeaway is, as Dong and Prem and New Morgan mentioned, especially when you are traveling to new places and meeting new people, not jumping to judgment in some cases, but taking a moment to pause and reflect on, you know, that person's experiences. But then also for me, this idea of where is home, because I think so many of us, having traveled, home obviously means different things to different people. And so I think for me it was kind of interesting, especially in the TED Talk, to hear Ayer's concept of home and how, he's been to so many places and lived in so many places. For him, his concept of home is different and can change from situation to situation. So I think for me, those are two of the biggest takeaways from the video and from the discussion.
And for me, like I feel it has been a very thought-provoking discussion. And now in my mind, I have been thinking like every one of us we come from different homes, and probably all of us are heading to different new homes for the future. Um, I feel it's a blessing that us can find those places that we can feel the sense of belonging and connection to it. I think that's a beautiful thing. Besides that, I would also like to say, besides like out of our small home, our small circle, it's also great to like just step out of the circle and like embrace a big world, because everyone in this world are all connected, and we share like a common home, the Mother Earth. In this way, it's like even more important. Like it's especially important for us to just like be like empathic, have cross-cultural understanding, and supportive to each other.
Very well said, Dawn. I love that observation and what you shared. I also really like hearing some of the takeaways that Stacy had from the TED Talk as well as our discussion today. Finally, wrapping up here, I want to share this final quotation by Ayer, which I think relates well to everything that's been shared. He says, where you come from now is much less important than where you're going. More and more of us are rooted in the future or the present tense as much as in the past. And home, we know, is not just the place where you happen to be born, it's the place where you become yourself. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And one final thing, I would like to share just a couple of our upcoming virtual engagement events. Our virtual engagement series is continuing on Wednesdays and Fridays next week as well. Next Wednesday, we're having a session called What's Next? Options After Your Student Visa Status. And this is a special session in which immigration attorneys will be joining us from a law firm in Chicago and helping answer some more higher level type questions that you might have related to your options with your student visa status and other options, and even employment options after you complete your program at UW-Madison. Next Friday, we're going to be having an Instagram takeover, and this will be essentially IS is going to be congratulating graduates and sharing encouragement for finals week. So you can follow us at UW_ISS on Instagram and be part of that. And you can also share your memories from your studies and experience at Madison by posting on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter using the hashtag here, the Global Badger Grad 20. And then lastly, we have our virtual graduation celebration with ISS that members of our team are working on planning, and that will be Saturday, May 9th. And there will be a slideshow of different memories and photos that have been shared by students with music to that, and also speeches from international students and faculty and staff as well. So all of this, there's more information about all of these upcoming events on our programs page, iss.wis.edu/programs. You also recently received our ISS newsletter, which has all these events, and then also they continue to be promoted on our social media sites. And on that note, I want to thank you for listening in. Thank you to